Listen, folks, we're going to start our video a little earlier today, give you a little taste of the pre-show. If you're a patron, there is an RSS feed that gives you the audio of the pre-show, with full pre-show and post-show, so you can listen to it. You always get the post-show in the video, but not always the pre-show.
All right, let me switch my audio, kill my mic.
Roger doesn't want to talk to you on the pre-show, however.
Hi, everyone in the pre-show. I'm turning off my mic.
Scott's busy studying.
Oh, sorry, I was just noticing PC Gamer or somebody. PC Games N. Who is that? They retweet or they've been pimping out this Metzen interview I did, and
that's nice of them.
Where they were coming from. They might be German.
Danke, Shane, for retweeting. And I'm going to look over these last minute. FCC is ending their agenda for the rest of the year at the request of the Republican Party. So no more thoughts of set-top box reform. It's gone.
Out.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
I mean, that was going to happen anyway.
Sure.
That's not really a news story to me. Ars Technica's John Brodkin has been following this story very well, and so I get why he is posting a story about it. It is important to note that. We probably won't talk about it in the show simply because, as expected, when a new administration comes in, they ask the previous administration to wind down operations. So that's just part of a normal transition.
All right.
Done
looking at that.
Do you feel like doing a show?
Oh, I'm feeling it.
Okay.
Way down in my brown noise.
Wow. That's not where I expected you to feel it.
No, I really do have a brown noise generator.
What is brown noise before everyone? Because everyone has already jumped to their own conclusions on what you just meant by that.
Right, but so here, let me play this for you, just for funs. Oh, that's the wrong app. Hold on. Okay. Where is it?
Doesn't exist. Prove it. You can't.
I know. I feel like I've been deceived. Hold on.
Well, define it for me while you're looking.
Oh, here it is. I got it. Okay. So here's some brown noise. Hold on.
I don't hear anything.
Hold on. What is this? Okay. Can you hear that?
Yeah. Sounds like a sprinkler.
So here's white noise. And then here's brown noise. So it's like a deeper tone.
Okay.
There's also purple noise, blue noise.
Purple noise is just Prince songs.
Okay, here's pink noise. Oh gosh,
I've heard of pink noise before.
There's blue, super high pitched.
Okay.
Purple, really high pitched. But brown feels good. I sleep to brown sometimes.
That's what brown can do for you.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what I was going on about with that.
All right. Good. That is much nicer than probably what a lot of people thought it meant.
I agree. 100%.
I just got alerted by my phone that Daily Tech News Show is live. So I suppose we should do the show.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Feels like a thing people want to hear.
Here we go. We do it now then.
Yeah.
Daily Tech News Show is powered by its audience, not outside organizations. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, November 16th, 2016. Happy birthday, Mom. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me on my mother's birthday, Mr. Scott Johnson, as he always does on my mom's birthday.
Big happy birthday to Tom's mom as well. We should celebrate our mother's birthdays, no matter what our upbringing was, Roger. We should always call our moms.
I texted her some emojis this morning.
Oh,
actually, I accidentally texted them to Jenny Josephson, our senior advisor. She appreciated them, but not as much as my mom, who, when I eventually texted them, she loves texting. She loves emojis. I got emojis back from her. It's her thing. It's awesome.
My mom too. I think it's generational. When emojis became an easier thing to sort of access and use in text apps and things, she went bananas with it. And I think there's something about their age. I don't know.
Daily Tech News Show aims to be your companion to understanding the technology world around us. We consider ourselves the color commentary to your tech news consumption. And as such, sometimes we like to just share the amazing things that folks in our audience are sharing with us. So this is one of those days. We do this from time to time. Did it with Justin Robert Young not too long ago. When we do it on Fridays, we call it Fan Mail Friday. I guess it could be Expert Wednesday, although that's not alliterative. We talked about Write In Wednesday because it's W's.
Yeah, I like Write In Wednesday. I like the sound of that.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, we got some good stuff. Not only comments on recent events, but some picks and things like that. Got some top stories to get to before that. Quickly, Amazon's standalone Music Unlimited service has added a family plan in the U.S., so up to 6 people can share an account for $15 a month or $149 a year. Scott, you seemed interested in this.
Yeah, one of the things I like about various music plans is their effort to try to make it a more affordable solution for quote unquote families or groups of people. I mean, not everyone. I know some people live in an apartment with 2 or 3 people and they're on a quote unquote family plan together. And it's just a much easier, cheaper way to do it. It makes it more versatile and usable. So I'm a little surprised they didn't have it at launch, but a lot of these guys didn't either. So I think Apple Music may be the only one that had it at launch, but of course they're like 5 years late on the streaming thing anyway. So they let Spotify and other services sort of learn the ropes before they had to do anything and commit. But I think this is great. And the big thing right now is selection. If Amazon can prove to me that I will get a better overall selection of music, they may have my money.
They will not get your money. That is my guess. Google Chief Executive Sundar Pichai will meet in Brussels with EU Competition Commissioner Margrethe Vestager and Gunther Oettinger, European Commissioner for Digital Economy and Society, to discuss those antitrust accusations. So we'll see if that has any effect there. Now, here are some more top stories. Here's the big one, folks. If you've been following tech news since the 90s, this is along the lines of the Chicago Cubs just won the World Series. Microsoft announced Wednesday that it is joining the Linux Foundation as a platinum member. Let that sink in. Don't forget, Microsoft is one of the biggest open source contributors these days. This isn't Ballmer's Microsoft. It's not Gates' Microsoft. This is Satya Nadella's Microsoft. They built Bash into Windows. They're bringing SQL Server to Linux, opening core parts of .NET, partnering with Red Hat and SUSE. Microsoft also contributes to Node.js, the Open Container Initiative, Open API, among others. John Grossman of Microsoft's Azure team will join the Linux Foundation Board of Directors as Microsoft's representative.
So we talked this morning about this a little bit, and it occurred to me since then. I was trying to think of another moment in tech where I had a similar feeling to this. And while, yes, things have been trending toward this for a while, certainly under Satya Nadella's reign, I still think it's pretty significant, or at least it feels significant. And to me, the closest I could come in my brain to what this feels like is when Apple, after moving to Intel, said, yeah, you can not only load Windows on our Macs, but we're going to give you a way to do that pretty easily with some simple drivers. That was crazy to me at the time. Like, that just seemed like, whoa, everyone's sleeping with the enemy on all sides. This is just banana. And this feels like that a little bit, you know?
Yeah. I think lost in the, the fun shock that those of us who remember Steve Ballmer calling Linux a cancer are feeling is this is really important. Leave aside the sort of the zeitgeist of it all. Microsoft is a large software maker, a large cloud computing provider, someone who is important in the world of serving and client server architecture and cloud and machine learning. Joining the Linux Foundation is essential. Yeah. You absolutely want this. Microsoft is one of the biggest providers of Linux installations through Azure and other programs. So you need them on board. This is why people were so upset that Microsoft didn't want to play with Linux, is they said, look, it makes sense for you to work in Linux. Now, Captain Jack in the chat room says, what's next? Windows goes open source. Sounds crazy right now, but maybe, and certainly not this year or next, but maybe down the road, as we see lots of people open sourcing machine learning, lots of people open sourcing hardware, it may make sense for Microsoft to say, hey, you know what? We've successfully transitioned to monetizing other services that we provide. And so why not open source Windows? I mean, you've already got large parts of Ubuntu in there. it may be a logical step down the road.
It's also just something you forget how sizable their enterprise footprint is. It's easy to see over the years as end users. We see these things that are facing us and saying, hey, try the band, try the Surface Pro books, try this, try that. And it's not the stuff we're talking about. They are a pivotal part of the spine of the internet and how data works and how servers work and how they communicate. And it's sort of inexorable. You can't just yank it out or say, Linux won. It doesn't really work that way. So them doing this, while to many of us, again, in the consumer space may look at it and go, whoa, this is just them, jumping the shark or whatever. But I see it as, no, this is the natural evolution of things. And this is the way data is headed. And it makes perfect sense to me. So I think it's fine. But, the fun, like you said, the fun, exciting announcement of it, it's pretty shocking at first. But you get past it. It's fine. Look for more from Microsoft on Linux. As a coda to that announcement, Microsoft announced Wednesday that Google is now a member of the .NET Foundation, which oversees the open source components of the .NET Core project. Google joins Red Hat, Unity, Samsung, and JetBrains on the technical steering group, alongside Microsoft, of course. Samsung also announced support for .NET on the Tizen OS. And that's interesting in its own right. But I'll tell you what, here's me being super informed today. I was looking at today's notes. I thought .NET was all Microsoft all the time. Like that was their standard. That was their custom architecture. That was all Microsoft. And it turns out there are a lot of people involved in that. There are open source components of this. Again, sort of supporting what you were saying earlier about their Linux involvement.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of peace in our time between Google and Microsoft as well, because those two have not always played as nice either. I think Microsoft, Apple, Google, Apple get more of the press, but this is a big move for Google to say, you know what? We've sort of been lagging behind in the server architecture space. And so we're not going to anymore. We're going to take an active hand. So this is as big of an announcement, if not bigger, than Microsoft joining the Linux Foundation. That one, if it weren't for the history, should be expected. This one's a little more surprising in the short term view.
Yeah, it feels like it's almost it's funny how we perceive it though, because this is Microsoft accepting in people. They're being gracious and letting them be a part of something, as opposed to them having to sort of get on their knees and admit that Linux is a part of their lives, or at least as perceived by some of us.
And it's an open source project. It's not like Google is going and setting up shop in Redmond on Microsoft's campus. This is the open source part of .NET, and a lot of people don't realize that .NET Core project is open source, and Google wants a seat at that table, and that's smart. Facebook should probably have a seat at this table as well. I would think Amazon might want a seat at this table. It is an open source project after all. A virtual version of Google Earth is now available for free on the HTC Vive, letting you visit any place on Earth. You can fly freely around the topographical reconstruction of the planet's surface or take guided tours of notable locations. Of course, details vary by location. Some areas are just flat maps with rough topography and blocky details like trees and stuff. Others are very detailed, and it feels like you're kind of standing in a Street View location. This is different than the Street View VR, which is available for Cardboard and Daydream. Google says it's exploring bringing the app to other VR platforms, so we might see Google Earth. Obviously, they're going to want to bring it to Daydream if they feel like they can implement it well, but we might see it for Oculus.
Yeah, I really wanted to speak to this today, and I just didn't have time to try it, but I have a Vive. I intend to try this. I want to see what this is like. There are certain cities like Vegas, for example, that is really detailed out, and they've got real geometry and texture mapping and stuff happening. While it's not going to be photo perfect or anything, you'll feel like you're walking around in a small virtual city. That's incredibly interesting to me. One of the main uses of VR that still interests me. I like the exploration side of things. The gaming side has yet to kind of find its magic, but this side of it's really cool. And I absolutely love this. I mean, they're literally saying, even if it's just a flat map with some bumpy mountains, they're saying the world is your oyster. You can go explore it. It feels kind of weirdly monumental. And I think it's easy to forget that because VR has been out for a little while now. We've kind of seen a lot of stuff. The hype is over, sort of just moving on with our lives. This would have been just mind-boggling 10 short years ago. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes what people will build on top of this, and if Google will make it easy to do so. Remember, there used to be some great filters on top of Google Earth when it first launched in the mid 2000s, and you can do some interesting things with it, and map out travel or show Santa Claus coming or stuff like that. Imagine street maps for video games that are taken straight out of Venice, Italy, or right out of Los Angeles, or downtown Tokyo. This is some pretty great topography to set your virtual experiences inside of.
Yeah, and the idea in my mind would be if there's broad use of this, let's say there's some stats that say this many people are exploring this in VR, then maybe they throw some resources behind it, and that stuff, we start to see that stuff improve. We start to see fidelity improve. We see smaller cities and towns, fully fleshed out with geometry and so on. Like maybe that helps Google Earth grow, and therefore there comes a day when we really are doing our virtual tours through this tool. This is just a great start, and I'm super jazzed about it.
Yeah, just don't expect much when you visit Korea, because apparently that's all blocked out.
It's all one big flat thing, and very blurry. Anyway, Snapchat filed for an initial public offering of stock on Tuesday. That was yesterday. This is according to Reuters. Snapchat makes less than $1 billion in revenue annually, so it can file confidentially with the U.S. SEC. The filing was made before the U.S. election. The offering could happen as early as March and be valued at $20 to $25 billion.
So I wrote that a little confusing for you. I apologize. The report from Reuters comes from Tuesday. The filing that Snapchat made apparently was before the election in the U.S. And just now sources are starting to whisper, hey, you know what? They did this filing because, like you said, it's confidential if you're under that 1 billion revenue mark. That way you don't have to suffer the financial scrutiny that you would as a larger company. But Reuters, Wall Street Journal, multiple places are finding sources that are saying this, so it sounds like it's for real. And Snap, by the way, not Snapchat, Snap Inc. Launching in March would be one of the pivotal moments for assessing the health of technology, but the economy in general, I would think.
Oh, I totally agree. You may not know the answer to this, and I certainly don't, but I wonder what the bottom limit is. Like if when does a company have enough revenue to say, oh, we make enough to maybe go for a public offering? I don't know what that is. There's got to be some lower limit.
And maybe a financial advisor who deals in this sort of thing can write in and give us a tip off. But from what I gather, it's not so much what you're making, it's what your upside is. If you can get enough investors to say, no, we think it's worth investing in you, you don't have to actually be making a lot of money. You just have to show that you're going to make a lot of money. And once you get that kind of confidence, that's what they seem to measure before they do the IPOs.
Yeah. So at the very least, $1 billion revenue per year is 20 to 25 years of revenue. If it holds steady. So even without growth, it's still worth what they're saying it's worth. So I totally get that. It'll be interesting to see what happens. You're starting to see these social platforms that started out as these dinky little apps that nobody thought twice about. Now is their time to hit the limelight and become ginormous. And maybe the next big names in tech for the next decade. It's kind of fun to think about. I don't know how it's all going to play out, but
yeah,
here's one of them.
Well, and one of the things we saw, remember Facebook IPO'd and then their stock floundered around and everyone thought, oh, it was a mistake. Now their stock's fine. They're making tons of money. They're great. Remember when Twitter IPO'd and everybody said, oh, it's real strong. It's a stronger IPO than we expected. And of course, they're the ones under scrutiny and having trouble and not bringing in the money that everybody would like. So it's easy to jump to conclusions just based on what happens initially after the stock comes out. But it is always a vote of confidence by the company in itself that we think we're worth it now. We think it's worth the risk. Ian in our chat room says these confidential filings don't feel that confidential. Remember, what's really confidential about the filing is all of the financial details that the SEC needs. And these smaller companies sometimes feel like they get bad press if those are open for everyone to pore over. That is unfair because they're a smaller company, and that's why that rule is in place.
It's also a filing, which means they're trying to do it and get it done, and they need approval. So in that approval process, if all your dirty laundry or just laundry is hanging out, then they say, no, sorry, not quite up to snuff. You got to go do these things. Well, now you sort of exposed yourself in a way that may or may not reveal industry secrets, but moreover will just make you exposed in a way that it's hard to then go back and go for it again without having this weird, PR moment in your life. So I'm sure that's
which is a bigger deal for a smaller company that isn't making a lot of revenue yet.
Correct.
Back in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the United States, IBM is building a simulated version of the internet in order to conduct mock cyber attacks against a large corporation. The mini internet is centered around a fictitious company's intranet, which has 3,000 users and more than 1 petabyte of information. The aim is to carry out attacks using real malware, do things like ransomware and phishing attacks, and then develop incident response plans. And you may say, well, yeah, every company needs an incident response plan for when they get hacked. Well, PC Mag notes that a Boston survey found that 75% of IT and security professionals said their organization does not have a modern incident response plan in place. Plans involve getting systems back online, of course, but also notifying your customers. How do you go about that? Alerting authorities, getting the FBI involved if necessary, if it's in the U.S. And we are the ones who are first to criticize someone for, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell us? When did you know? All of that sort of thing. Having an incident response plan is a large part of what goes wrong if you don't have one in those situations.
Yeah, I've got a friend who works at I can't say who, but works for a company where they have up to this point thought to have had an excellent strategy with their IT, and they were supposed to be, secure and up to date and all the things you have to do on that broad of a scale. And then it turned out something real bad happened with the database that turned out to be kind of super, super rookie mistake. Somebody made 5 years ago. Nobody knew about it. Like, that stuff can happen at the speed of business. It's very hard sometimes, and some of that stuff slips through the crack. I like the idea of simulating this. My bigger question is 3,000 quote unquote users and a intranet, based smaller scale system with a petabyte of data. Is that enough to replicate all the wacky possibilities? And I don't know, maybe.
Well, I guess if I had to have a response to that, I'd say what IBM is probably doing is saying, we're simulating a company that has 3,000 users.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the biggest company in the world. It's not the smallest company in the world, but it's a useful simulation in that sense. So we're going to have a 3,000 person intranet, and then we could throw whatever we want at it. Remember, this doesn't mean only 3,000 people on the simulated internet. It means 3,000 users of the intranet. And you can simulate as many attackers as you want, but you don't need to have all of the users of the internet out there, because most of that stuff just is irrelevant to an attack. The attack is usually a small number of users.
Yeah, good point. Seagate, the storage people, announced a 5 terabyte version of its backup plus portable hard drive. It's actually kind of huge for that drive, which it claims is the highest capacity portable drive on the market. It does not require a separate power source and transfers data at 120 megabytes per second over USB 3.0, all in a 0.8 inch thick case. This thing's going to sell for $190, and that starts later this month. 5 terabytes. That's crazy.
I love it. Yeah. I don't know why I'm always attracted to large hard drives. It's just the way I'm built, Scott.
Are you in a, let me ask you this right now. You give us your current sort of assessment of your current data situation. As much as we're doing things in cloud and backup here and backup there, as local storage goes, how are you feeling right now? Like, I feel like we're maybe getting to a new place where we have to start thinking about multiple 5 terabyte drives, and they have to start being this inexpensive.
Yeah, it's funny. I am somebody who tries to keep as much data local as possible and also backs up locally, as well as backing up to the cloud. That's always part of the recommendation that I've had. I back up to a 2 terabyte hard drive. That's feeling cramped. Yeah. So having a 5 terabyte possibility is great. I have a terabyte hard drive in my laptops, both my Surface Book and my MacBook Pro, and they are definitely filling up. Part of it is keeping copies of MP3s and videos and things like that. Mm-hmm. I have started taking some things like old episodes of Daily Tech News Show. I don't need to have those on the hard drive of my laptop. I've been putting them in cloud storage, but they're also still backed up locally. So that 2 terabyte drive is feeling cramped. Terabyte's feeling cramped on my laptop. I'm looking at 5 terabytes going, heck yeah, I want that as my backup, my local backup solution. And I'm definitely getting 2 terabytes in my laptop.
Yeah. I've got about a terabyte on the drives that are in the computer on my main production machine, 3 terabytes of external storage that I'm just keeping a lot of incidental files in. and then a 4 terabyte backup drive that's backing up everything I've got so far, and that's starting to run out because I have more than that total, and eventually I'm going to fill those up. So I don't know what my next step is. Maybe another external drive. Maybe that's time to upgrade the core machine. I don't know, but I'm getting to that place as well, and starting to wonder when we're going to start to see bigger backup solutions online that are less expensive, because the cloud stuff, as cheap as it is to get good cloud storage these days, I feel like it's still a little too much for what we may all be needing it for. So that's the big next stage for me, is let's see what the cloud folks come up with, and I'll keep less of it here, I guess.
And I do some cold storage, right? I've got some 500 gigabyte, terabyte drives with things that I just don't need access to. So yeah,
I do too. Do you ever worry those are just sitting in a box over there, just waiting to die? I always feel
I do
hate it.
That's the thing. I'll get this 5 terabyte drive and just pull all that stuff off, put it on the 5 terabyte drive.
I have old CDs. I'm worried about that way. They're just CDs. I know they're rotting.
I have copied all of those CDs to a cold storage drive. Yeah. So I have MP3 copies of them all. I've copied DVDs, especially DVDs of home recordings, to hard drives, and have those available there. But yeah, man, I have floppy drives from the 90s on the hard drive of this laptop right next to me right now. So
yeah, I've got a few of those things happening as well. It's funny to find your oldest little piece of data and then think about its lifetime. It's like Mark 2002, and you're like, oh my heck, where did I even come from?
That WordPerfect file that I have to go find an emulator to open and take a look at. All right. Thanks to all those who participate in our subreddit. You guys are the best. Thanks to the folks who maintain the subreddit. You are doing the Lord's work, and we appreciate it very much. Submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Like I said, it's a fan mail day, so we're getting right to the pick of the day. Scott in Iowa was listening to Patrick mention something about wireless mouse not being able to be used while it's charging. And this just made him think of his own wireless mouse, the Logitech MX Anywhere 2. Scott says it works with both PC and Mac. It can communicate using either the rather slim USB dongle or Bluetooth. It can store 3 different connections so that you can cycle through them easily and use it on multiple devices without having to go through the pairing process. And it has a dark field laser that gives it excellent tracking even on glass surfaces. It's compact, but not so small that I can't hold on to it. Now, this is secondary to my favorite thing about the mouse. I use it on a daily basis. I've had it for about a year and a half, and I've not charged it more than a half dozen times. Wow. I'm stunned by its battery life, and even better, if it does die on you, it works just fine while charging. The only downside is it's not the cheapest wireless mouse you can get, coming in at around $60 with Amazon Prime, but it has an excellent build quality and enough features to be useful without going overboard. I would buy it again in a heartbeat, the MX Anywhere 2. Thanks, Scott in Iowa.
Yeah, I have this mouse right here. Where is it? Shoot. Oh, here it is.
Well, it could be anywhere. It's the MX Anywhere 2.
This is the one. I don't know if people can see it very well, but it's
awesome. Audio, they can't.
Yeah, that's true. They can't. But there's the nice thing I like about it, or one of the things I like about it, is it's a nicely weighted mouse. That's super ergonomic as well. Some of the stuff you didn't mention. And it's good for gamers. I have no problems or input lag that's noticeable anyway when I'm playing Overwatch or something that's super twitchy. Been very, very happy with it. And he's right about the charging as you go. It's super simple that way. And I've yet to charge this, so it seems to be working well.
Well, there you go. Send your picks to us, folks. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. You can find more picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. All right, let's get into the emails. Kick us off, Scott Johnson. We got one from recent guest Shelley Brisbane.
That's right. Shelley Brisbane wrote in and said, yesterday's show didn't touch on an important reason that quiet cars should make noise. Pedestrians who are blind or visually impaired use vehicle sounds as a reference when approaching or crossing the street. Allowing drivers to choose from an infinite variety of ringtones would be incredibly confusing, not only because the car would sound different, but because the volume and pitch of each vehicle would cease to be a useful indicator of distance and direction. I wouldn't insist that all cars use the identical sound, but there should be a limited set of choices or some means of establishing best practices for car makers. That is a really important viewpoint. We've gone so far as to make crosswalks and other things very friendly to the sight impaired. There's zero reason why we shouldn't come together with some sort of standard for cars, and whether that's just to make them all sound like engines or not. is one thing. And I understand this idea of like, I want to have a unique sound for my car and I want to download it from an app store and have this.
Well, hold on. We've got some ideas on that point coming up. But first, William Madison has had low vision most of his life and has been totally blind for the last 4 years. He echoes a lot of Shelley's thoughts on this, but added, near silent vehicles are not just an issue for the blind. If we are either distracted with our thoughts or consumed by something on our phones, we are more likely not to notice the distracted driver in the hybrid/electric car. Mental focus on thoughts or a device can reduce our hearing ability. I hope it's not the backup beep, but hopefully something that is easily identifiable beyond the general noise of traffic. And in that vein, and in the vein of what you were just saying, Scott, our next emailer proposes a solution.
Exactly. Alan says, as to what noise to use, he notes that many places, such as quarries, large construction sites, etc., are opting for white noise alerts. He included in a video explaining. You have an example of this, don't you? You want to play it at the end?
Well, yeah, the video. If you're watching the video version of the show, Roger will show that, or you can find it in our show notes. But finish up, and then I'll play the example.
All right, I'll finish this up. The benefits that are that the noise does not reverberate, which when I first read that was a little confusing, but we'll talk about it. Less confusing is less confusing to the ear, can be heard even through earplugs, and is made up of multiple frequencies, thereby making it audible for those who have a hard time in certain higher pitch frequencies, or have harder times with higher pitched frequencies. Combine that with a much lower nuance factor. Nuisance rather, not nuance, nuisance factor, and it seems like to me that they're going to completely replace the old beep beep.
All right, so here is that sound that he's describing. That could be at least William, or I'm sorry, that Alan thinks might be a useful replacement. Take a listen. Right. So you're backing up, and you just hear. It doesn't echo off all of the buildings and glass. It doesn't go through your window and wake you up in the morning. But if you're standing nearby, it certainly is audible enough to get your attention.
Yeah, that's not bad. White noise isn't just for helping people go to sleep that have tinnitus or something like that. I have an app that does a number of ranges of that kind of sound. I have everything ranging from pink noise to white noise to something called brown noise, which works well for me. It's really low pitch. Sounds like running water somewhere. But the idea that you're not going to have the sort of the echo and reverberation problem sounds really cool.
Yeah. And whether you're hearing impaired or not, it's also easier to locate that white sound.
Yeah.
The beeps, which because they echo off everything, they show in this video anyway from BBS Tech that that folks have a harder time telling where it's coming from.
Yeah. And it's not, when I say it's freaky, I just mean you're not going to not hear it. It's not going to be so bled into the background that you can't think of it. See, listen to that. When I hear that, I think there's he's calling from inside the house.
Yeah, exactly. It is a little spooky. Adam writes, "Hey Tom, thought I'd share with you the pretty disappointing results I got from Google's new PhotoScan app." And we talked about this yesterday in the show. It's a scanner that is supposed to make it easier to scan in high quality versions of your photos. It says it gets rid of glare. It can tell where the edges of the photo are better. It can improve color. He's like, as I was scanning the picture, I was thinking, geez, these don't look all that great. I wonder how it would compare if I just used my Galaxy S7 Edge and took a picture of the original picture. Well, the results were not even close. With a picture of the picture coming out much better, in my opinion. PhotoScan might help with glare, etc., but if the quality is going to suffer, it's not worth it. Hoping they can address this with updates. He attached a link, and you can go take a look at it yourself. But his Google PhotoScan one came out quite a bit brighter than the one he took with the Samsung. And by the way, I mean, the Galaxy S7 Edge has a really good camera. So if your phone doesn't have as good of a camera, then the PhotoScan might still be helpful for you. Mm-hmm. But there is a definite difference there between those two photos.
Yeah, it's super washed out in the first one. So I had a kind of experience with this real quick. I'll explain. I was trying to figure out the best way to get some old photographs that we got of my dad's from some storage. And we thought, well, how are we going to keep this stuff in the best way possible? We tried an actual scanner, and it looked not great. Weird lines and funny stuff happened with artifacting and stuff. So we didn't do that. We thought, well, we could pay somebody to do it, or why don't we try one of these apps that let you scan stuff and archive it? And what ended up working the best was like what he's saying. I just took straight up iPhone photos portrait wise. Went and cropped them and cleaned them up a little bit later in Overwatch in Photoshop, and they look great. They look like the real stuff. And my conclusion is we are now getting to the point where these cameras are as good as the old school way we used to do this, with big giant cameras with pre-lit lighting in a room where you would put a painting in there and then take a picture of it, and that's what you would generate your prints based on. We're kind of there. So totally my experience as well. And I'm not sure PhotoScan is where it needs to be yet.
Well, yeah, it just came out, so maybe it's not optimized for the higher quality cameras, but it does seem like it works well enough. If I would put it this way, based on this email, if you take photos with your phone and they turn out fine, you don't need PhotoScan. But if you've been complaining like, yeah, I try to transfer photos into my phone, but they just don't look very good, then PhotoScan might be able to help you out.
Yep, totally agree. Andy C. was among the people who noted Samsung Samsung used. What? I guess that's used.
That's capital. That's just the capital of used so that you read it. Samsung used to make cars.
Oh, you're just creating some emphasis. I thought, Samsung's got a new little group they made.
You put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
United States Education Department. To make cars, but got hit by the Asian financial crisis. Quote, the company started selling cars in 1998, just before South Korea was hit by the Asian financial crisis. In September 2000, it became a subsidiary of Renault. And am I saying that? I've always said
Renault.
Is it Renault?
I mean, obviously, if I'm French, I'm going to say it even more Frenchy, but usually it's Renault.
My brother had one, and we called it. Well, we called it a lot of words, right? Yeah. Anyway, it adopted its present name, although Samsung maintained a minority ownership. Unquote.
Yeah. So anyway, the whole point of that was not to try to embarrass Scott about his pronunciation of Renault. But for Andy to point out to us, and a few other people pointed this out as well, that Samsung did used to make cars. We were talking about Samsung acquiring Harman and the fact that they're getting into some car telematics and in-dash embedded software. But Samsung made a point of saying, we are not going to manufacture cars. And Veronica and I were saying, yeah, but that doesn't mean they won't down the road. And I think this bears this out. Like, hey, they used to be involved in making cars. And we've actually talked about their partnership and selling to Renault in the past. So yeah, it's a very good point. Thank you.
It's all about, I'm sure you guys covered this, but it's all about what we see happen with automation, what we see with battery power versus gas, what kind of money there might be projected to be made in that space. And all the companies with all the money are all going to be interested in doing things with cars. I guarantee it.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally, we'll finish up with the comments regarding our discussion of making sure you read high quality news. We talked about the whole fake news controversy yesterday. That is to say, the controversy about fake news, not that the news controversy is fake. I have to be careful how you punctuate that. Here's a summary of some of the responses. Mike asked me to share my RSS feeds. He's like, you mentioned you curated your feeds, and I should warn you that there is news, there is comics, and there is sci-fi in there. Those are just sort of garnishings. Don't take those as heavily curated. My news section of my RSS feeds are pretty much BBC News, Reddit, BuzzFeed, I think, maybe Hacker News is in the technology, but the technology section of my feeds might be of interest to you. So I will share those. If you use Feedly, you can see them at feedly.com/Tom Merritt. That's TOMMERRITT. And I'll have a link to the OPML of my RSS feeds in the show notes as well. Todd noted.
I'll go ahead.
Sorry, Scott.
I was just gonna say, let's get your Pinterest page going finally.
Yes, definitely. Todd noted that slow page load times lead him to sometimes only rely on the headlines. He says, that's one of the reasons I don't read the articles. I know it's going to take forever for it to load. So a lot of times I just go on the headlines. Don't do that, Todd. I'm not saying you have to click on the story, but if you don't have time to make it load, don't assume you know the story from the headline. And plus, he says, most links are obfuscated by URL shorteners. I would be more likely to read a story from a source I respect instead of one I've never heard of. If I can see the domain name of an article before I open it, I have some sense of what I'm getting into. Now, here's the thing. Most of the time, I see these little cards on Facebook and Twitter that show you the source. But I think what he's talking about is sometimes people use URL shorteners, or they're just writing a status update and it doesn't generate a card. And then all you see is a bit.ly link or a Twitter, URL shorten, and you don't know what you're getting into before you click on it.
Totally agree with him. I always trust them more when I know where they're going, even if they don't generate a card. If I see youtube.com/ and then something, and then they sort of truncate it, I at least trust that more than, tiny URL something. So I totally agree with that. Chris made
by the way, Tinvec says, if the story won't load beyond the headline due to an insane popover ad, he says that happens sometimes. I add to that, then don't trust that place. Insane popover ads, even if it's from a trusted source, I don't want to encourage that. So anyway, that's just my own thing.
And some of them who don't like you to have ad blockers still think you're running them when you're not. Which drives me. Chris made the point that we all have biases. Algorithms have human bias. A curation has a human bias. A trust system has a human bias. And then Russell writes, major networks have removed audio, video, or cropped and cut audio, video, share the story they want. That is also deceptive and could be interrupted or interpreted as fake news. He makes a really good point. I was talking yesterday about, I keep making this sad statement that we have been poor stewards of the internet and all the link bait. Now it's our fault for letting it go this far. But these guys are making better points about it than I am. And Sakani wrote, politically biased reporting can ruffle feathers too. Quote, opinionated slants can make them seem less credible than The Onion. And sometimes, well, whatever. A lot of people believe The Onion as well.
That's true. But no, all of those points are basically saying there is no source without some kind of bias.
Right.
And those are all great points. That's why Patrick and I focused our conversation on what can you do to make sure that you are only looking at the most reliable sources. And I choose that word very carefully, reliable. Reliable means they get it right most of the time. Doesn't mean they don't screw it up some of the time. It doesn't mean that there aren't biases that creep in. Be aware of those biases and you can look for them and adjust accordingly. I read a source, let's say the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. I know that there are certain biases that those publications are culpable of having. And I adjust the way I read it accordingly. I don't think it means you toss things out. You say, okay, if I know where this is coming from, then I know how to critically read it.
Right. It's easy to say, I will only read from sources who are critical of their own biases and therefore react to that and are always vigilant of when they may be showing their bias or when they may have one and change that course. But then I also realize that it's some bias in determining who those guys are. So we could get into an infinite loop here if we wanted to, but we don't want to. I think these are best practices, and what you just said makes a lot of sense.
And finally, Jeff adds, I recently sought some resources to help with the news and found these two useful resources. One of them is allsides.com. Don't be fooled by bias. Think for yourself. See news and issues from multiple perspectives. Discuss like adults. That's a huge promise. Discuss like adults part. But I do like what they try to do. And this is overly simplistic itself, but they try to show like, here's the same story from a right-wing perspective, a left-wing perspective, and a centrist perspective. And while not everything fits neatly into those categories, it is an interesting attempt to show you that not every source is showing the story in the same light, going back to all of those criticisms that Scott was just reading from people. And he also has a Google Doc link to a list of clickbaity, misleading, or satirical news sources if you just want to check and say like, hey, I don't know if this place is on the up and up. This is a document that you could look at to say like, oh no, this is meant to be a clickbait source. If to bring it all back to what we were talking about yesterday, if your question is, I think this source has a little bit of a bias, that's a good sign. It means you're probably reading something fairly reliable, and you can filter accordingly. If your question is, I don't know if this is telling the truth, then that's a bigger problem. And I think that's the one we were focusing on dealing with yesterday.
The only other thing I would add to this is something I've learned recently, and not to give too much credit to Thursday's DTNS, which comes out tomorrow. But Justin Robert Young's very good at sniffing out garbage articles. He's really, really good at it. All you have to do is present him with a headline, and he immediately goes, all right, well, that, and that, and that, and that. Those are all from somebody's press release. They're just regurgitated. I mean, he just has a knack for it. It comes from his background. He did a lot of stuff with, journalism early in his career. And you as well, Tom, you're like two guys that I feel like if I'm looking at a headline and going, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this, I'm outraged. If I come to you guys, you'll usually go, well, how about this perspective? And this probably is pushing it, or this is a bad source because of A, B, and C. It's nice to have people around you like that. So my only other suggestion is don't just curate the sites you want to visit or not visit. Curate the kind of people that you bounce these things off of and have those interchanges with, because for me anyway, that adds a lot to not only my understanding, but my ability to sort of suss out what's good, what's bad.
Yeah, I know I do that with technology because that's what I'm doing every day. I'm plowing through for hours a day all of these sources. So I see all of these different spins. It's easier for me to do that because of that. I will go to Justin on a political story for sure and say like, hey man, what is the deal with this? Because he's doing the same thing. Not just with technology, but also the political side for his politics show and for brushing up for the contender. So yeah, find some good folks and bounce the ideas off them.
Yep.
Thank you, Scott Johnson, for letting me bounce ideas off you.
Oh, I love these. This Writings Wednesday, what'd you call it?
I don't know what we ended up calling it.
Write it up Wednesdays, written Wednesdays, whatever it is.
We're glad you emailed us Wednesday.
I think reading emails is awesome. Obviously, DTNS has one of the more active, smart groups of people writing it all the time. I think you're really lucky in that regard. So it was my honor to be here for it today.
What you got going on to tell those folks about so they can write in and say, hey, that was a pretty awesome idea that Scott had?
Well, there's a million things. How I usually express my opinions on life and things around me is through my webcomic, which I hardly ever talk about on the show, so I'll talk about it today. If you go over to myextralife.com, you'll find at least one per week, sometimes more, talking about everyday stuff. Sometimes, like the latest one, seems like on the surface it might be a little political. It's really not. It's more about society and how we're kind of bad at political things. Video games, movies, science fiction, pop culture, all that stuff. So if you are interested in that, it's like 13 years running, maybe more now, 14, something like that. It's something I love doing, and I love when people discover it. So check it out, myextralife.com. For everything else, follow me on Twitter at Scott Johnson. By the way, if you do pick up that OPML or look at my Feedly, you will find that Extra Life by Scott Johnson is right there in my little comics section. Yep. There you go. Thank you to the patrons. You are the folks that make it possible for us to do this show. There are so many ways to support us, and we thank everybody that supports us no matter how. dailytechnewsshow.com/support. We have, Ryan Officer has been out there making his own art, drawing the folks, and he's putting that up on Redbubble and DeviantArt. Sakani Wright, who is a professional driver, writes the Your Professional Driver column on Daily Tech News Show. There's also dailytechnewsshow.com. There's also a store at dailytechnewsshow.com. And of course, the main way we fund the show is patreon.com/DTNS. Welcome to all our new patrons, including Priscilla and Matthew Hillebrandt. Welcome them into your arms, fellow patrons. And huge thanks to everyone who supports the show and all of our new patrons. Once again, if there's nothing else you can do to support the show, you can take a moment right now, think of the best segment from this past year. Maybe it was back in January or February. Go to bit.ly/bestofdtns. Give you a moment, bit.ly/bestofdtns, and just put in what that segment was. If you got time code, that's great. If not, leave it blank. The more of you that suggest these segments, the better our best of show will be. And Roger Chang, our producer, certainly appreciates it. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with the aforementioned Justin Robert Young. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Boom.
Nice.
Mailing it in, Beatmaster. Beatmaster always sends me a paste bin of all the links he's used in the chat room. And he always has a phrase that kind of plays off the topic. So he called it mailing it in. Maybe that's what we should call our specials.
I like it. Mailing it in's not bad.
We're just mailing it in. I mean, you're mailing it in, and we're reading your comments.
Yeah, just mail it in. I think these people that wrote us today just mailed it in.
They absolutely did, Scott. We should do a whole show as bad radio team.
I'm ready.
As radio, baseball announcers.
Put that on the list.
Right? Seriously. What do we got for titles?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we
I
hear.
can.
Man, this thing's just
Well,
Frustrating.
and we lost him.
Oh. Did he not hear us say we can hear him?
I thought he did. Oh, now he's coming back. Must have crashed.
We
on
can
him.
hear you. Oh.
Oh.
Uh-oh. Maybe something
He
else.
hears us, but the thing keeps kicking him out. Let's see. Showbot. I will go look.
Showbot.tv. Microsoft, Google, and Linux working together. Oh my. Happy birthday, Mrs. Merritt.
It's cute that it's number 2 there.
Tom likes big drives and he cannot lie.
It's not bad. Hey ho, it's off to backup I go. Windows dressing is.
IBM mocks the internet because it's a mock internet. Yeah.
No, that's not bad.
Mailing it in.
Well, there's a lot of Tom likes big drives and he cannot lie.
Yeah, that's very popular. Strange OS fellows.
That's not bad.
all right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can still hear you. Are you going to stay in?
It just keeps crashing on me. I don't know what it is.
Need a new computer.
I need a new Google. All right. Top is mailing it in.
We've been reading some of them. Just
All right. Tom likes big drives and he cannot lie.
yes, we heard that one too.
There's 2 of those. Why are there 2 of those?
There's several.
Two.
Actually. Yeah.
There's like,
Hey ho, it's off to backup I go.
Maybe we should do we like big drives and we cannot lie because Scott does too. It's not just me.
yeah.
I like big drives. I bought a 4 terabyte, 2.5 inch.
Mailing it in seems to be a very popular choice too, though.
Hold on. Is that Seagate only 2.5 inches? Is that little?
Yeah, that's why it's such a big deal. I mean, there have been 5 terabyte drives before. This is the first 2.5 inch 5 terabyte.
Well, it's also portable. Yeah, it's not just.
It wasn't hitting me how small that is. I guess.
Yeah, no, it's.
In my head, I pictured a big fat drive like this one.
I mean, really, what you lose out is in performance. I mean, you're dealing with a 5,400 RPM drive, and you got small.
Well, but you saw the megabytes per second, like.
Yeah, but that's. I mean, you could go much faster if you had a larger, like 7,200 RPM, 3.5 inch drive. I'm not saying that it's.
And no external power.
Yeah. Oh no, there's an advantage.
External power for that.
The advantage is super wide size and portable.
I see what you're saying. Yes, if you had an entirely different infrastructure for the drive, it would be different. You're right.
But that's great. You know why? Because those things fit in those little fireproof, fire-resistant cases. Those little safe, and I stick a couple in there, and then hopefully it survives a house fire. Strange OS fellows. IBM mocks the internet. Windows dressing for the penguin. Welcome to Tom's Terabytes.
Tom's Terabytes.
Getting used to English. Curate your people. PracticeNet. Everyone just loves Tom like big drives, and he cannot lie.
Well, if we do that one, I'm going to make it we.
Okay, we like big drives and all right.
But mailing it in, I'm still levelating, so get in there and vote if you have it. Showbot.tv.
I do want to offer my suggestion for
what's that?
So on the whole bias thing, on news sources, one I always use, and it's not that I take everything from the site as gospel, but a great resource I used to use a lot in college and my early years in the field is worldpress.org. Now, this is a very interesting magazine. If you actually look at the actual magazine, what they do is they take stories from periodicals around the world and they reprint them. Now, what's interesting is they oftentimes will do larger stories, and then they'll get various press responses from, say, Europe or Africa or Latin America, Asia, and it gives you a very interesting perspective because then it's not just an American perspective or a first world nation perspective. It could be from a perspective of, say, like a developing country or a country that may not have as much wealth. And so perspectives are very, very important because I think oftentimes people tend to assume what they see as reasonable is the same across the board, which it isn't. That's me. But check it out, worldpress.org. It's free.
Worldpress.org.
And oftentimes they'll label if a periodical or a newspaper is centrist, left-leaning, right-leaning, so at least you can kind of get your bearings. Although that's relative to their
I don't think this is so much a solution to fake news. This is a solution to the filter bubble, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Just adding it in. Take it or leave it. I'm just putting it out there. It's like an hors d'oeuvre.
I'm anticipating reactions. That's all.
Like an hors d'oeuvre.
Like an hors d'oeuvre.
Do you want the stuffed mushroom or not? There's 5 other people who want it.
I like that metaphor. Oh, so I'm testing something that I'll report on next Wednesday.
What's that?
I made this. I was in need for a very long time now to, my PC monitor is ancient and dying. And, my PC on the other hand is nicely updated and doing great. So it's stupid to keep trying to keep that thing alive. And it finally started crapping out the other day. So instead of going on a hunt for like a 27-inch, PC based monitor thing, I'm going with that. That's what I was talking to you earlier. I'm getting that Vizio UHD.
Oh, you are
4K thing that runs, the 240 hertz or whatever gamer settings thing. I'm going to try it out, see if that's a viable thing. And that's cool. It's like 40 something inches, which sounds really great to me. Or maybe I'll get a headache. I don't know.
Wait a minute. Where's it going to sit? Like just on your desk?
Yeah, I got I have a whole separate desk for that over there.
Right.
Plenty of room.
I've had to your right.
I've had an old 1080p 50-inch there before, so I know it'll fit.
And it's a HDR, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's 4K, so if you leave it at its highest resolution, you shouldn't suffer from like, I'm too close to a large monitor, because the resolution will be tight enough that.
Yeah, that's the idea. A 1080p at that size is kind of chunky and weird.
Yeah.
But I think that 2180 or whatever it is should be good.
I just want a 27 or 30-inch monitor.
Yeah.
So spoiled. I remember wanting a 19-inch CRT because those were huge.
Yeah, and they were like $700 too.
And they weighed like 50 pounds.
Yeah.
You put it on your desk would sag.
Those were the days. Sure.
Roger, best tool for that purpose would be, what is this? TV size. Oh yeah, the TV to size calculator in science. If you check the chat room, Scott Beatmaster posted a link.
Oh,
right there.
Oh, I just realized I'm not in. I never was in. Why am I not in?
I need the title, and we're tied at 14.
Let's do the we like big drives and we cannot lie.
All right.
We like big drives and we cannot lie.
Roger is the vice president. He is breaking the tie in our Senate.
You other brothers can't deny.
You can try.
Wait, what's the chat? DTNS chat? What is it? Just DTNS.
IRC.chatroom.net.
But what's the room?
Chat.
Oh, wait, what? What'd you say, Roger?
I said, are you in the Slack still?
Oh, no, I'll get in Slack.
I'll just send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Chat. Just chatting.
Chatty chat, McChat, pants.
Yeah, I had a 1920 1200 monitor at Revision 3, and it worked great. Unfortunately, the button got stuck. The power button, like you couldn't unpower it off. So, yeah. I generally go for the ultra sharps at Dell site because I like them. Generally, they test pretty well overall for color and uniformity. Not the best gaming monitors, though. I have a question for you, Scott. Work or DTNS related?
Sure.
Do you like Code Breakers?
What is it? Wait, what is that?
Code Breaker is a show from the guys over at Marketplace Tech.
Oh yeah, no, I do. I like it.
Would you like having Ben Johnson on the show with you?
Yeah, heck yeah.
Okay, done.
Great.
Yeah, I'm looking at either date-wise the 7th or the 14th. I might put him on the 14th. Spice it up.
Spicy.
By the way, got another community Kickstarter for you. Let's see if I can find it.
Roger, did you put
I
something?
don't want to have to log in.
Did I put what?
Yeah, he put that.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
It wasn't refreshing for some reason. Oh, TV distance size, calculator science. Oh, interesting. Okay, so mine's going to be a 42-inch.
So Mike Range, who does our weekend summaries of tech news, they're hilarious, has a book called Tech Please, a funny book about things I don't understand. Basically, it's a compilation of his views on technology. If you remember last year, he did an ebook called The Internet is Like a Snowblower. So he wants to put Tech Please out because it has a whole year now of his summaries. He'll have ebook and a paperback, and he's just launched it. So you got to go check it out. Let me screen share.
So he did a spot on TMS today for this.
Present to everyone. Here you go. I have backed it because I want a paperback copy of it. So out of selfishness, I ask all of you to back it as well. Even if all you do is pledge $1, he'll thank you on his blog. But you can get an ebook, you can get a poster. Len Peralta did the cover art. So yeah, man, go check it out.
That's awesome. Yeah, he did a little TMS spot today. We were excited to hear about that.
I want to see that backer number go up while I'm sitting here waiting for the export to complete. Just one of you. Just one of you.
Just one of yous. One of yous.
One of you's got $1. I know you do. You're going to go waste it on some almond milk, half calf, double whip, peppermint mocha latte, which actually sounds really good.
That sounds all right, doesn't it?
I'd probably blow it on
maybe you should buy that and then take another $1.
Actually, better use for that instead of getting the drink.
Someone's yelling my name. Let me go see who this is. Hang on.
Scott, I am your ghost.
Now I want a ice cream Snickers bar.
Ice cream Snickers bar.
Haven't seen them? They're just like a Snickers bar, except it's ice cream.
Oh yeah. Why do you want an ice cream Snickers bar though?
Because you're talking about that whatever latte.
Because I was talking about Starbucks coffee.
Yeah,
it's pretty much just as sweet as.
It's just candy, really.
It's like taking candy from a baby. All right, did we do it? I'm gonna reload. Maybe it just didn't update. No, we didn't. Oh well.
It's literally less than a minute.
I know. It exported faster than I thought it would. All right. I'm going to upload to SoundCloud. And in that time, hopefully someone will make that go to 8.
You're still sharing your screen.
Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen. Here. Let me do that. No, there's the paste bin. Hold on. Let me share the right screen. Forgot to pull that out of the tabs. There. Now we'll keep an eye on it. Do you have do you have any cheers?
Cheers
to cheer Mike Range along?
I wasn't really big in the spirit boosting.
You weren't in pep club?
No, we didn't have one. We had cheerleaders, we had color guard, we had choir, we had concert choir, orchestra, which was out.
No, those are different things for you. I guess we had band.
We had marching band.
People in the band could be in various versions of the band, and I guess chorus was the same way.
Yeah, we had a lot of those. Now that was one of the surprising things I noticed about my high school, coming from a urban school district. Mm-hmm. It's like, man, you guys got a lot of money for this. But they don't. I mean, a lot. I mean, they got the same amount of funding, but they tend to have better
Didn't
off.
have as many sports as larger schools.
We had all the sports. We had
How
football.
many people were in your high school, though?
2,000 plus.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you're 4 times as big as my high school.
We had
We had major sports. We had football, basketball, baseball, track, tennis. We didn't have volleyball.
We had volleyball.
We
baseball,
had
or I mean softball.
Yeah, I think we had softball. I think we had softball. I think we did. Well, I know we had tennis.
Did you have golf? We had a golf team for some reason.
You know, we didn't have golf until Mike Pine's dad, who taught at the school, sort of wanted Mike to play golf. So he basically just made it happen. It wasn't so much a golf team as Mike.
What other sports did we have? We had wrestling.
We didn't have wrestling.
I don't think we had gymnastics. Although some other schools had gymnastics, we didn't have gymnastics. My sister's high school had gymnastics. There also used to be a shooting club and an archery thing.
Oh, we did archery, but I don't think we had a team. We had all the equipment for it though, and only the women did archery. The men never did archery.
It was an Amazonian Amazonian field.
Kind of a weird thing.
We had swimming, water polo, and diving.
I want to say we had some kind of swimming something, because we did have they would go over to the community pool to do it, but I never took place. Maybe it was when my sister was in high school and then they cut it or something.
We had a huge, I mean, we had our high school was one of those ones built in the 50s, late 50s.
We got 8.
Awesome.
There we go. That's all we wanted. Thank you, whoever that is who backed Mike Range. Got it up to 8. You guys are the best.
Built in the 50s, late 50s, so it had all the stuff. We had a shop class, auto shop, but over the years, things slowly started falling away.
Well, there was a big referendum in Greenville when I was in high school about funding extracurricular activities, like band and chorus and all of that. And
we sold candy bars to fund us.
Well, this was when the candy bars weren't enough anymore.
Yeah, we did the candy bars to go on trips. It's like, hey, you want to support? It's $1, and you get trips.
No, this is just for funding the actual existence of band and chorus.
My junior high, we did that. We had to do magazine sales to fund the extra, all the.
Yeah, we would do stuff like that too.
Man, those things are such a pain in the ass. Would you like to buy a magazine subscription? What was the other one? Hillshire Farm. Like, we had one where we sold Hillshire Farm like cheese logs and stuff.
Yeah. We sold candy. It was like boxes of Thin Mints and Turtles, and I hated doing that. I just ended up buying a bunch of them myself.
The candy bars were great. I would just have the box in between classes, and people would come over and say, hey, Roger, I'm taking one, and they'd just drop $1 in the box. It was great. And then they sold themselves and probably contributed to America's obesity epidemic.
I actually remember how much I hated that. And if ever I see people selling kids, not people, but if I see kids selling those band candies, because they all look the same. I'm like, oh yeah, no. Even if I don't want it.
We actually sold not through those corporations where they like make those specialized candy bar wrappers and it's just the same chocolate bar underneath. No, we actually just sold like king sized Reese's and Twix. Those are Reese's and Twix.
Ours were like Hawaiian Host like boxes of candy, not candy bars. They weren't Hawaiian Host, but they were that size. I ate a lot of mints, a lot of chocolate mints.
High school wasn't too bad. I actually liked it. It's just hot in the summer. Just super hot. It's in the valley. Triple digits. How the hell can you study when you have triple digits in the classroom? Melting. That's why I actually loved my English class, because it was an air-conditioned classroom.
All right. Don't know what happened to Scott. I'm sure he's fine, and I'm sure he sends you his love and best wishes. And we will talk to you tomorrow, everyone.